What's up guys, welcome back to another video. So in this episode we're going to be installing a lift kit on this old Dakota here. I haven't seen one of these in a while, and this one actually only has 45,000 miles on it. So it is a pretty clean truck. Hopefully it won't be too hard to get all the bolts out and stuff like that. I know these Dodges, they do like to rust, but since this is such low miles, maybe it'll be all right. So as you can see, I've kind of gotten started already. But we're just gonna do a time lapse in this one. So let's just jump right into it. Now, basically we got all new control arms for it. So this upper control arm's getting replaced, the lower control arm's getting replaced. What's it called? The sway bar link is getting replaced. The tie rod, both inner and outers, are getting replaced. The spring, the shock, everything is new except for the spindle and the hub, and steering rack. And that's about it. Everything else is all being replaced, and the sway bar itself is remaining the same. But yeah, everything else is going straight to the scrap. So I'm gonna knock the front out. Hopefully it won't be too bad getting some of these bolts out. I am a little bit worried about the bolts down there, as well as the upper control arm bolts, which are right there, the two nuts. But it shouldn't be too bad. Like I said, this thing does have 40,000 miles on it, or 45, but you can see it's not in great shape, especially the suspension parts. So hopefully they won't be too bad. This cotter pin's definitely not gonna come out. So I'm gonna have to just smash a socket on there and impact it off. Basically, bunch of like little rust things that's gonna prevent this from going smoothly. And to remove tie rods and ball joints, instead of doing a ball joint removal tool, which you kind of just wedge in here when you can damage the boot, what I do is I just hammer on the spindle, on the part that's around the actual cone of the ball joint. And that kind of shoots energy through it and loosens it up, and usually it just falls right out. All right, so we just got all the suspension taken apart. We do have some new sway bar bushings, so I'm about to take the sway bar off and we'll put new bushings on that. I was struggling getting the control arm to go back up in here with the spring in. And I think the reason for that is because this new spring is obviously a more heavy duty spring than the old one. And with this, what is it, 3-inch block, there's just no way that you could get the control arm in. I couldn't get the 2 bolts in, the 2 control arm bolts. There was just absolutely no way. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna run the old spring, because I think this might be the wrong spring, or maybe if you were to get this spring, you would have to use a smaller block, because the spring itself would give you a pretty good lift, I'm assuming. So either way, I'm gonna put the old spring in. It's not in terrible condition. It does have some rust on it, but it's gonna be all right. So let's try this again. All right, so with this block, I finally got the 2 bolts in the control arm. That took forever. Those are both in, but now this is about 3 inches lower than the upper control arm, and even if I push this down all the way, it's not enough to go through the hole here. So, well, that's 3 inches above, with it basically the whole front end of the car sitting on the control arm right there. So it's getting a little dangerous. When I was actually jacking this up, the whole car kind of shifted. I think if I wouldn't have caught it and pulled it back this way, I think the whole thing would have fallen. So that would have been fun. So that's why I put the other jack in there, to kind of support it in case it goes falling down. But I'm still short. Really don't know what else I could do here. I'm really at a loss. This is about 5 inches off of the jack stand already. Other side's off the jack stand. All that weight is on this control arm, pushing that spring, compressing it. But like I said, it's still short. So I finally was able to get this upper ball joint to reach with that spring spacer in there. And I just don't think the perch is gonna work. Basically right now the upper control arm is pulled all the way down. I believe it's sitting on the frame. This isn't even tight yet, so if I tighten that, this will even try to pull that down even harder. The spring is very, very tight at the moment. As you can see, the whole truck is resting on the control arm. And another thing, there's no way that's gonna work. Because you can see that this is gonna hit the frame right there. So yeah, guys, it is what it is. You know, you live and you learn. And I mean, I wasn't gonna tell the guy, you know, these parts aren't gonna work if I wasn't sure that they weren't. So I had to mess with it all day essentially to try to get it in. Yeah, we're gonna start taking this apart. Once I get those perches out, I just have this one side put together, which is nice because like I said, it was so hard to even get this to reach at all. But once I pull this perch out and I'll put together the other side, then we're gonna move on to the back, where right now the axle is going above the leaf springs, but we are gonna pull the springs and then put them over the axle, and then we're welding brackets onto the axle to make it so that the springs are over the axle, which is gonna give us a pretty dramatic drop, or a pretty dramatic raise in the truck just from that, which I think is probably gonna be pretty close to the raise to the lift that we're gonna get just from running these thicker heavy duty springs in the front. So hopefully that'll kind of match, and that's gonna be that. But if it's not, then we're gonna have to go back in there and kind of figure out a way to space the front maybe a little bit, but not that 3-inch perch is just not gonna work. So or maybe we'll have to raise the back a little bit. So we'll figure that out once we get the axle flipped on those leaf springs in the front put together, obviously. All right guys, so I'm in the middle of doing the rears. So I got both the shocks off. That was pretty simple. The lower bolt and the upper bolt. Let me show you guys. So the shocks go from this lower bolt. I believe that one went forward, and there was another bolt up here somewhere, and then this one here was bolted in right there, and it went up to right around there. That's just 2 horizontal bolts. Unscrew those and the shock comes out. But now I got the U-bolts out to hold the axle to the springs, which is just right here. It just goes around the axle like that, and then there's 2 nuts on the bottom, and there's 2 of those on each side of the axle. So I got all that off. Obviously you can see I jacked the axle up to get it off the leaf springs. But since we are going to be flipping this, I'm gonna need to pop both the leaf springs off. And I do have new bushings for the leaf springs. So I'm gonna take these off, put the axle down, probably just set the wheels on the ground, and then put the leaf springs back in, and then we're gonna have to weld a new bracket to the axle up top over here, so that we can bolt that back together. So instead of the leaf spring, or instead of the axle being on top of the leaf spring, it's going to be underneath the leaf spring, like all the new trucks. But right now I'm working on getting these leaves out. The bolts are all seized. So the bolts are seized in the bushings in here, which means I'm basically cutting through the bolts right here and on the other side, and then I'll pop the leaf springs out, push the bushings out, and then we'll put the new bushings in, and that should be that. But it is taking forever. Just sucks because I'm trying to cut through it with a sawzall, and the blade just keeps wearing out. So that's what I'm doing now. So I just got the leaf springs cut off. Actually, the rear bolts, I was able to unscrew the ones that go through the shackles. This one actually looks like it came out too. Hopefully, I haven't tried this bolt on the other spring yet. But the front ones, I did have to cut these off on both sides, like I said. And then that obviously allowed me to drop this down. Now I gotta press these bushings out. So like I said, I haven't tried to unscrew this one yet. Hopefully, I know the nut will come off. At least I did on all the other bolts. But hopefully the bolt isn't seized in the bushing. And then I'll press new bushings in here, in both the springs. The easiest way that I found to replace these bushings is actually to melt this inner sleeve out. So I just torch it. So I just torch it around here, and then just hammer that out. And then I go ahead and I cut through the actual outer sleeve with a sawzall. And then after it's cut, it's not really holding in there, and you can just hammer it out. And the poly bushings go in pretty smoothly. I gotta clean all this crap up, sweep up, kind of give me a fresh start again, clean up all the tools, all that crap, kind of put the bolts off to the side, and then I'm gonna drop the axle down onto the wheels, which hopefully everything will reach. And then after that's down, I'm gonna put those springs in, like I said, and then I'll lower the car onto the truck onto the springs, or the truck with the springs onto the axle, and then we'll kind of I'll show you guys what that looks like in a little bit. Alright guys, so I got this leaf spring back in. As you can see, new poly bushings all the way around. See a little bit of red. And you can see it goes above the axle. Alright, so I just got the new brackets all mocked up on the axle. I actually ended up welding those already. So right now the car is sitting, the truck is sitting on the axle with the brackets welded up. So I'm gonna have to coat it with some, probably just some chassis black paint. And then after that's done, I'll throw the, and after that's done, I'll throw the U-bolts in there, get it all tightened up, and that should be it. The one thing that I do have to do still is I think I might have to cut the old brackets off, or not, at least not all the way, but just to give enough room for those U-bolts to go through. I'm not sure about that yet though, so let's check it out and see what it looks like. All right, so there's the new bracket. It's all welded in around here. It's all welded in around the back, and I got inside as much as I could also. Obviously the spring is sitting on it. And then the one thing that's important too is you got to make sure that the angle between the drive shaft is pretty straight, because if it's not, it's going to cause issues when driving. I made sure it was straight when the wheels are on it and it was sitting on the ground. It looked good. But yeah, basically, like I said, all I got to do is coat this, and then throw the U-bolts in. It should be ready to go. All right guys, so there it is. This wheel is all the way on. Everything's tightened up over there. I had to tighten these bushings with the car, with the axle jacked up, so that way they'll be in the normal driving position. As you can see, I tightened up that, the leaf spring, the U-bolts. The only issue is this e-brake cable for this wheel doesn't reach, so I'm just gonna zip tie it there for now, and then we'll kind of figure something out later. But yeah, everything is all tight. Yeah, so I'm gonna get this other wheel on, and then it's gonna be out to alignment.